Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, January 23rd, 23rd day of the year. That makes sense, right? And welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. I've always been interested in history, usually growing up in elementary school and even high school. History was always about big events, world wars. Columbus supposedly discovered America in 1492, although we know now that that wasn't accurate. History, the Great Depression, World War II, but history exists in less noticeable events as well, and often in our everyday lives. Events that may not make the evening news or even be recorded in our history books, but depends on the story and who is telling the story. Today, we will have guests who just celebrated some of their organizational and personal history. And while it may not be in those old history books, it is meaningful to quite a few people. And we look forward to it. Our G-list guests today are Cynthia Anderson, Winnie Frazier, Sonya Jenkins. Am I missing somebody? And Sonya Jenkins. These sorority sisters, as well as roundtable regular Barbara Wallace Edwards, recently celebrated 50 years of Kappa Upsilon Chapter and 111 years of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. We look forward to hearing from these ladies in their historical celebration. Our show today, of course, is sponsored by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl customizes the solution that fits your needs. So let's get to our roundtable regulars. It should be interesting today. Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Good morning. We're going to start with Barbara Wallace Edwards. Barbara, how you doing? Since you're one of our G-list guests, sorority sisters, I guess.
That's right. Good morning,
How you
Thom.
doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I see
Very
you got your
good.
red on. All
Yes,
the sisters
sir.
have their red on.
Absolutely.
So,
We're here
and
to
you're
represent.
all still grinning from the event a couple of weekends ago. So it must have been a lot of fun.
It was oh my God, I can't even begin to describe it. We had the best time ever, and as my sorority sister said this morning, I don't think we did such a great job. Maybe we need to go back and do it again, maybe next weekend or something, because the memories are just unbelievable. We had the best time ever. I saw people I hadn't seen since I graduated college. So it was wonderful, wonderful event.
And how many people did you guys have?
I didn't get an official number. Maybe Sonya can give us an actual number, but it appeared to be about 300 of us there. I don't know the actual numbers. Yeah, it was huge. And that didn't even begin to scrape the surface of how many members who were initiated through our chapter. I don't even know the total. And again,
what was the event? What was it?
We were actually celebrating our chapter, Kappa Upsilon's 50th year on Auburn's campus. That's when our sorority was chartered there at Auburn, January 13, 1974. And so we were celebrating 50 years at Auburn. And in addition, that same weekend, our sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, celebrated 111 years in existence, which was founded on Howard University's campus, January 13, 1913. So it was, we had two things we were celebrating during that time period, and we had a fabulous time. We had a committee who organized the weekend of events, and they did an outstanding job.
Let's get Michael on. I know he wants to ask you some questions as well.
Okay.
So when you say that, what was your agenda like? What was your schedule like?
Well, first thing on Friday, it was a 3-day event. First thing Friday, they actually had planned campus tours on Friday morning, and due to the weather, they had to cancel that a little bit. So they did end up doing some mini tours on campus. And then we had a sisterhood event where we all came together midday on campus. That was a presentation by the collegiate members of our chapter at that time who did a stat presentation. And it was just fellowship time. We had refreshments and everybody was coming in and just greeting each other. And then that night, on Friday night, we actually had a pajama party, and that was so much fun. We had
that's the event Michael was trying to get in.
Yeah, Michael wanted to. Michael said he invited to the next pajama party. So we'll have to remember that. We'll have to make him an honorary member for the night or something so he could come as well.
Michael, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, TG. I hope you are too.
I am, man. I am. So they didn't. Well, I was going to say they didn't invite me, but they didn't invite you either, did they?
No, I guess they thought I didn't have any pajamas, but I have some nice pajamas.
That wasn't the only requirement to get in the door, Michael. So you had to be a member of Delta Sigma Theta, Sorority Incorporated, Kappa Upsilon Chapter, as a matter of fact. So, but yeah, there were some events that were open to the public, but that wasn't one of them. So,
well, I should have been honorary because back at Auburn, I was a Delta sweetheart and I was the MC of one of your fashion shows there.
Yeah,
so I should have been invited because of that.
Yes. Just for that reason alone, you should have been. You're so right.
So I think he's upset, Barbara.
I think he is. I think he's really upset with us. Michael, we're so sorry. We apologize. And we'll have to remember that next year. The next time.
That was great. I'm so glad you guys had a good time. It's, oftentimes we look back on those days and we don't look on them fondly. Right. And it's great that you guys were able to do that and to have so much fun with it. And to see people you hadn't seen, that's always some kind of a uplift right there to just to see somebody you hadn't seen in forever. And you immediately go back to those memories. I saw one of the guys who tried out for the football team. And I laughed because he lived in Atlanta. Right. He would drive into Auburn in time for practice. He would practice, and then he'd drive back to Atlanta. And so that part about school, he just skipped that part.
Oh, he wasn't going to class.
He's going to practice every day. And then when I saw him, he said, well, they wouldn't let me play, man. And I'm thinking.
Well, you have to be in school to play.
Student athlete, that
right.
first part.
Right.
Student. I don't think he heard it. He knew about that part. It was so funny. So that was hilarious. When I saw him, it's like, oh man, I can't believe he's here.
Oh yes.
Oh, yes. Michael, you got questions? Well, you got comments?
Well, I know that it was a great time, and you had a lot of people at the game, of which you were a guest coach, and I think that was great to have everybody come out and support the girls basketball team, and I know they appreciate it. I would like to say or ask you, what stood out most in your Soror's mind when they came back and saw Auburn University today versus where it was when they were there? I know you're there all the time, so you're used to it, but what did you get any comments on that as to what they thought about the campus and stuff?
I guess Barbara.
What, Michael? Different. And how they were talking about the campus tour and so they were looking so forward to that because they didn't know how to get around campus anymore. Everything looked so different than it did when some of them were there, over 40 years ago. And so that was one of the things that stood out most of all.
Okay, I can see that because the growth has just certainly exploded.
Yes, it has.
Well, it's like somebody said the other day, it's not that little village anymore.
Not at all.
You got,
Not at all.
you got high rises now.
Right. I listened to an interview where DeWanna Bonner, who was a former women's basketball player at Auburn, they retired her jersey at the game on Sunday. And it was actually DeWanna Bonner's weekend on campus. They had all of the women's basketball alumni back on campus for a reunion. And they interviewed DeWanna, and she talked about how she just finished Auburn 14 years ago. And she said coming back, it was just so different. She said she didn't have her GPS on. She thought she knew exactly where she was going. She said, it's only been 14 years since I was here. And she said she started to drive down College Street and wait a minute, where am I? Because everything looks so different here now. So even in 14 years, it's changed a lot. You can only imagine what a difference has been for those who hadn't been back for 40 years or so.
Yeah. When you used to get off the freeway, there was nothing there but cows and pasture.
Yes. Oh,
As you went down, I guess there's college.
Actually, you're right. Yeah. Used to be the first thing you saw that was anything similar to the college was Borghi Supper Club or something was right there on College Street. Yeah. And of course that's gone now, but now there's so much stuff between the interstate and actually getting to the beginning of campus that it's almost unrecognizable to people.
Very much so. Very much so. Barbara, you got something else you want to talk about this morning?
Well, I want to say, first of all, happy birthday to you, Thom.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Recently.
I had a birthday, and people were real nice to me.
Good. That's wonderful. I also want to say congratulations to our men's basketball team. They're now number 8 in the AP poll. That's great. Now, both our men and women's basketball teams won their games this past weekend, and that's a wonderful thing, too. And I also want to send our condolences to the family of Dexter Scott, the son of Martin Luther King Jr., who passed away from prostate cancer recently. So our condolences to the Scott family.
Yeah. Michael?
Yes. First, happy birthday, TG.
Thanks, man.
And a couple things I want to mention. We as consumers, we have to be on our P's and Q's, as our elders used to say. And in particularly when it comes to financing and money, the banks do not protect us anymore. And a couple of situations, there's one lady that lost between $2,000 and $3,000 out of her bank account and what have you. And the bank, and she was scammed, but the bank would not assist her in returning the money and then protect it because of a loophole. And the loophole was the fact that her purse was stolen and she had hidden in the side of her purse her PIN codes so that she could remember when she used her debit cards and what have you. And because her PIN codes were in there, the bank said, well, you provided the scammers your protected ID information, and we're not responsible because you gave it to them.
Well, how you gonna remember all that?
Right.
I went. Where was I? I was over in Office Depot, and I was buying something, and they wanted me to sign this thing, and I said, "Wait a minute, do I have to have a password?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "I don't want it." What
right.
do you mean? I don't want it.
Right.
I got enough passwords.
Yes.
What am I going to do? I'm going to do what this lady did. I'm going to write it down somewhere where I can remember it, and then somebody's going to steal it.
Yeah. Yes. And it's going to be your fault.
Right.
All the time when we were just dealing with cash, and I guess this is me being older or whatever, when we were dealing with cash and we were just dealing with you never had anything stolen from you.
No.
But now that we got all this security, man, they can get in your stuff like it's lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Michael's right. The banks are not doing that part to try to protect the consumers. I've heard 2 cases recently, Michael, one at Wells Fargo and one at Bank of America. Very similar situations where individuals lost their money, and the banks are not. They're denying that they have any rights or responsibility to replace their money.
Yes, yes. Now they're all FDIC insured up to $250,000. Okay, but that's not applicable. Another lady, unfortunately, was on vacation. I think she was down in the Caribbean or somewhere, and got a phone call and was told that somebody had and they purported themselves to be from Chase, and that someone had just transferred $20,000 out of her bank account. And in order for them to try to help her, she needed to follow their instructions. And they ended up asking her for her identity information, her personal identity information. And, you know, a lot of times when you call the bank to do something on your own, Barbara, you had a situation, they wanted you to prove that you were who you were,
right.
You know? Yes. Okay, and you had to give them all this information, and if you weren't able to give it to them succinctly and quickly, then they'd say, well, you a fraud, and it really wasn't you. Right. So this lady was giving them all this information. Well, it was the scammers. They took it and then took the $20,000 out of her account. Wow. And then she went back, she left vacation, went back to Chase. Chase said, well, we're not responsible because you gave them your information.
Wow. That is sad.
Yes.
Yeah, that's tough. Man. That's tough.
So just a word out there to all our viewers and listeners, be very, very careful when it comes to your banking information and what have you, because the banks are not on your side. They just want to hold your money and use your money to make money off of it, but they're not interested in protecting you.
Right.
And, you know, one other thing, this is kind of interesting, you know, the talk of NIL and all of this. The young man from the University of Alabama, his name is Nick Dunlap. He won the American Express Open as an amateur. And the prize was $1.5 million. But he did not get it. He was ineligible for it. And the person that came in second place from South Africa was given the $1.5 million. Dunlap, sophomore at Alabama, was precluded from the winnings because he's an amateur.
Yeah.
Wow. What?
Yes. So he has now withdrawn from the Farmers Cup and everything else, and he's gone back to Tuscaloosa as he ponder his future. He's the first amateur since Phil Mickelson in 1991 to win a major PGA golf tournament. So can you imagine that? They always said, you know, nothing goes to anybody in second place. Well, the guy from South Africa was second place, lost by one stroke to this sophomore, and he won $1.5 million.
So why did they let him in the tournament if they were not going to allow him to win?
Well, I mean, they do play in those tournaments, and I think they've always been ineligible to win.
I wonder why. Again, I mean, if they're going to let them in, let them be eligible, you would think.
Well, I guess it's kind of like that old NCAA thing about who was amateurs and who wasn't.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about Alabama, and I you know, Nick Saban retired.
Yes.
And there, you know, you of course you can always go to Facebook to get some gossip or what have you. You know, there's every now and then there's some truth there. They've been slamming old DeSantis, boy. That feels good, I swear, because he was. But one of the reasons they say Nick Saban retired is the NIL and the transfer portal. It's allowed everybody to catch up with him, and I don't know. I just think that's interesting, you know, and
it is.
And I wonder if it has allowed everybody to catch up, so to speak.
Well, I will say this. I can understand, given his position, as to why he would be frustrated with the way things are in college football.
Yeah, I can too.
Okay. Yes. Now, and you look on one side of it and you say, well, it's only fair for the players to be able to transfer and go somewhere else if things are not like they were expected it to be or told. Because coaches get up and leave all the time. They recruit these kids in and say, I'm going to be here for you. You're going to be a part of our program.
coach at Washington is a perfect example.
Exactly.
One of the kids at Washington said, "Man, that was cold. He just left. He never said anything to us or anything."
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. So now with the transfer portal, kids can get up and move. So, when you're sitting in a situation where you're in control and you have all the chips, and then the people that you were controlling, now they have some of the chips, that can be frustrating. Okay.
Yes.
And then also, when you think about it, and Tom, you know about this as well as I do, back in the day, we always had NIL. It just wasn't called NIL, and so
it was under the table back then, wasn't it?
Oh, you mean those new cars that would show up on Monday after a good game on Saturday?
Right.
Yeah. And those secret handshakes where you just shake hands and you got $100 bill in your hand and all that. It was NIL then. It just wasn't called NIL and it wasn't legal, so to speak. And now it's legal. So, certain schools, Alabama, Auburn, whoever, they could pay and provide, I think they call it some support. That's the political term we use, support. Not a contribution or donation, support to players to come and play there. Well, now it's legal, so everybody can do it. So the game has changed. So I think that would kind of frustrate you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It'd be hard to depend on, who your roster is right now going into the fall, but by the fall, you may have 3 or 4 key players that aren't there. Or new players that have come in. So it's a different world.
Think about this, Tom. Think about this. When a kid got a scholarship at a school and they say it's a full ride, it's a full ride, but technically it's a 1-year contract.
A year contract, that's right.
Okay, from 1 year to the next. And the coaches didn't have to re-recruit their own players. Now they have to re-recruit their own players every year. As well as recruit new players coming in, maybe
you could count on, like I got redshirted. Well, this guy's gonna get bigger, he's gonna get stronger, he's gonna get faster. It was to the school's advantage, to redshirt you. Now, if you redshirt them, hell, they might leave.
You're right. They'll leave before they play down. That's right. But it's only fair, it's only fair to the students to be able to, again, to have that some type of input in that as well. The schools and the coaches have been making billions of dollars, lots of money off these athletes' name, image, and likeness for years. And so it's only fair that the students get some compensation as well.
And I don't know any more than this little tidbit I'm going to tell you, but you remember when the NIL came out and I said, well, they ought to have NIL for the former athletes as well.
Yes.
I think that's going to happen.
Yes.
Right. They've been talking about that. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's only fair.
So former athletes going to get reparations?
I don't know what you're going
to
call it.
They should. They really should.
Hey, I don't know what you're going to call it, but I'm in line. Let me put it that way.
I don't blame you, Tom. That's right.
Also, just as an aside, 2 things. One, and I know Antley had asked, Robbie Ashford, who was at Auburn, is going to South Carolina.
Yes.
And we wish him well.
Yes.
I wish him well. And then Cadillac Williams end up leaving the university.
Yes.
He and Zach Etheridge. And so we wish them well. I don't know where they'll turn up. I know Cadillac did a great job for Auburn on the year. He was the interim. And so we wish him well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just as a follow-up to a case with our former president here in Atlanta and the district attorney, Fonnie Willis, there seems to be some legs growing with that case now, where she has been accused of having a romantic affair with the lead prosecutor on the Trump RICO case. And she has been issued a subpoena to be deposed. And all of this is coming from the lead prosecutor's wife, former wife. And she's alleging that Fonnie Willis had a relationship with her husband while they were still married. The issue, as it comes out, is the fact that Fonnie Willis hired this guy, his last name I think is Wade, to be the lead prosecutor on a RICO case for Trump. Well, where the issue comes in is the fact that she put him under contract and was paying him money, and he in turn took her on some vacations and what have you, and they have credit card receipts and stuff where she accompanied him to California, Florida, different places like that. So they're saying she benefited from the money that she paid him. Now, you can kind of make it whatever you want to make it. I know from an optic standpoint, it does not look good. But the fact is she tried to go out and find other attorneys to take that case, including former Governor Roy Barnes. And he said he just didn't want to have anything to do with it. She tried somebody else that also said they didn't want to have anything to do with it. So this was, in fact, like her third or fourth choice in order to get somebody to prosecute this case. So they are doing whatever they can to get out of this situation. She may end up having to recuse herself from it, and then they put somebody else there in order to save the case or what have you. But, stay tuned. There's more to come.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you shared that with us. There's always some mess, man. And
Always.
They were going to find something. So, when you got to be beyond squeaky clean these days.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with a criminal.
That part.
I like how you slid that in there.
Right. Just move right along.
Okay. Well, let's move on to Sean. She's got a minute for us, and then we're going to get to our G-list guest. Sean.
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Cynthia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. Do we have any wrestling fans out there? No? Well, we have one here. It's me. I'm the fan. And on this day in 1984, Hulkamania was born as Hulk Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik in Madison Square Garden. As the Hulkamaniacs cheered him on, he won his first WWF championship. But wait, there's more. In 1996, Clash of the Champions 32 took place at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada. The main event saw Ric Flair and The Big Show defeat Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh, yeah. But before I go, in the words of Ric Flair, the Nature Boy,
I can't help it that I'm custom made. I can't help it that I look good, smell good, can dance all night long. I can't help it.
But what you can help is if you're having a bad day, don't go ruining anybody else's. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Cynthia Jones, and this has Got a Minute.
All right, Sean.
Go, Sean.
Boy, I remember the wrestling in Birmingham, Lynn Rossi and Bearcat Brown. They were the good guys, and they would go against the Blue Infernos from parts unknown because they wore these masks and they didn't know where they were from, and they were the bad guys. And you had to have Channel 42, which was new in Birmingham at the time, or you couldn't get it. So you'd have to go to somebody else's. I'd go down to Mr. Burke's house and watch it. So let's get to our G-list guest. Hollywood's got the A-list, and here on Tuesdays with Tom, we got the G-list. Our G-list guests today are Cynthia Anderson, Winnie Frazier, and Sonya Jenkins, sorority sisters, as well as Barbara Wallace Edwards. They recently celebrated 50 years of Kappa Upsilon Chapter, 111 years of Delta Sigma Theta. Good morning, ladies. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. So let's hear about it. Tell us about it. Barbara's just beaming over here and just all over herself.
I'm still smiling.
So who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
As you mentioned, the Kappa Upsilon Chapter recently celebrated 50 years of sisterhood service, scholarship, and social action on Auburn's campus, and we had a grand time. I was fortunate to be on the planning committee, and we began the planning and the strategizing back in April of last year just to make sure that our celebration was befitting for the impact that we've had on Auburn's campus, and we wanted the charter members, such as our Soror Anderson, to be pleased with the weekend, and all of the Sorors, of course. And we think we did all right. It was a grand time from the moment we arrived on Auburn's campus. Some folks arrived on Thursday even, but the festivities began that Friday, and we had a time. So
yes, we did, from beginning to end.
It was truly wonderful. Really wonderful. I remember back at the onset of COVID, for one of our Founders Day celebrations, Sonya and several groups of several sorors from Kappa Upsilon are good at getting us together. So for one of the Founders Day celebrations, they pulled us together on Zoom. And this was when Zoom just kind of had first started rolling out. And as part of that, it was probably like the 48th anniversary of our chartering. And they started talking about the 50th anniversary. And I said, I want to be a part. I'm just excited and I want to help. They didn't allow me to be a part of the planning committee. And I'm happy because it was I was just awesomely pleased about the hard work. And when you walked in the hotel, everything was just all laid out. So it's good to celebrate while somebody else is doing all the work. And yes. They did an awesome job.
You know, it was such a monumental event. It was actually history making to see all the people you hadn't seen for years and all the warm smiles and the hugs. And it's such a feeling that you treasure that you can't really describe it. It was just an overwhelming, wonderful event. All the activities, the planning was exceptional. I want to put the planning staff on our national committee because they did such a great job.
They did.
All the gifts and everything. It was so rewarding. And just to be able to fellowship and see everybody there, I tell you, it brought back so many memories.
Yes. Yes. I want to add that, Thom, when the chapter was founded back in 1974, we had 10 charter members on that line, and 4 of our charter members, including Dr. Anderson, Soror Anderson, was able to attend the 50th celebration this year, and that was huge to have them there. And just like she said, I volunteered to help out as well. And they were like, no, you Sorors from the 70s, you were the groundbreakers. We don't want you all doing the work. We just want you to come and enjoy yourselves. And that's what we did. And I'm like her. I'm so glad that they wouldn't let me help now because I enjoyed it even more, I think, because we were just able to just come and relax and have a great time and not have to worry about any small detail. I mean, to the point where there was Saturday morning, there was something that, we were attending and with my food allergies and everything, that I can't eat everything that, people have to serve. So they were like, well, why aren't you eating? I said, well, there's nothing here that I can eat. They ran out and got something for me to eat. And I was like, no, don't do that. But they went out of the way to make sure that every detail was covered and everyone was okay. And my sorors, I just love them. They did an outstanding job.
You know what was so rewarding for me? One of the things is to be able to see our first advisor, Miss Patsy Parker.
Yes.
I mean, she was actually a jewel for us on campus. You know, I can remember going to her house when the big sisters from Alabama State and Tuskegee wanted to show up and look for us. I mean, she was such a great person. She was a great educator, and she was like a mother figure to all of us. And it was so rewarding to be able to see her.
What did she teach?
She was the principal in Opelika. A counselor in Opelika City School System, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, her husband was a principal there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was just so wonderful to walk up and see people that you haven't seen in so many years, and you immediately knew them. I mean, it was like we've been together. We didn't miss a beat, so it was great.
Right.
And it also gave us a time to reflect on the history and talk about what we used to do back in the day. And, you know, in the conversation earlier, you all were talking about what impressed us or shocked us. You know, I'm not on the campus as often as Sonya and Winnie and some of the others, but I go down occasionally for some of the Kappa Upsilon events. And I'm so happy that they still keep us connected to what's happening at the undergraduate level with the chapter there. But to just walk around that campus and see the growth. And, you know, you mentioned, Thom, that it's no longer a village. I think it's still a village in spirit, but in terms of physical accommodations and buildings and structures, there's so much new stuff down there. I kept trying to find that deep curve that used to lead from the hill down to the quad. And I couldn't find that. You know, it's like there's a building there now. So what happened to that curve? But it was just awesome to go back and remember.
And the flush is gone. I mean, when they got rid of the flush, that was
Yep.
a lot of people didn't like it.
You have to tell everyone what the flush is, Thom.
The flush was the Santa Freeze. It was Santa Freeze. I don't know why we called it the flush, but you could get French fries for 15 cents. You get great ice cream cones, man. People would be standing in line all out to the street. It was great. It was wonderful. And up until, I guess, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, they got rid of the flush or something like that.
Well, I referenced in a conversation about coming up the hill is on Thatch and passing by Superfoods, and people are looking like, "What's Superfoods?" Superfoods is the only place you could go to get groceries.
Right.
And Burger King was across the street from it, and you can get a Whopper Junior with cheese for 49 cents. So, you know, so those were the days.
And we have to add, Sarah Anderson, tell them when you came to Auburn and how many minority students were on campus at that time.
Well, I was there at the same time Thom was there and was playing football, and I came in 72. And we used to joke because the census, when they talked about minorities, would often say there are 200 minority students. Minorities, but we said that includes the custodial staff, the janitors, and so they were count. Because I never saw 200 people that looked like me.
Right.
They used to say it was 200. I said, "Well, where y'all hiding that other 100?" I ain't never seen them. But you know, the other thing was that many of them were commuter students. So at 2 or 3 o'clock, they were gone.
They were gone.
Right.
And it was just a few of us on campus that was hanging around. And I always felt a little guilty about the rest of the students, particularly the rest of the Black students, because even though it was really rough on us, at least we were football players. And so you got some advantages there, you know. You know, you could go over there to wherever that hall where we would get our schedules done, and you could just hand it to them and walk off, man. You didn't have
and
to
I
do
waited
anything.
in line for hours and hours and hours.
Right.
Yeah.
So now Michael says he wants y'all to know he's got a pair of pajamas for this pajama party. So Michael, you got a question for her?
Yes, I do. And I do have some very nice pajamas.
Well, they have to be red, Michael. They have to be red.
I was going to say.
That's fine. And I look good in them, too, if I have to say. I have a question for each one of you ladies, and I'll just start with Sonya. First of all, Sonya, I want to say congratulations on your appointment by Governor Kemp to the Georgia Technology Board. here in Georgia. And being on that board, can you give us a status of broadband to the rural areas? Because that's something that's been on the table for quite some time. And if we're ever going to solve this insecure Medicare and Medicaid and healthcare issue in rural communities, broadband would be a vital part of that. Can you tell us something about that?
Well, sure, and thank you for the congratulations. I was appointed to the Georgia Technology Authority back in 2021, and honestly spent the first year kind of getting my legs up under me, seeing exactly what it is that the GTA is responsible for. And one of the first tours, trips, field trips that we took was to one of the areas that are a little more depressed and have rural broadband issues. And so from the inception of my time on there, there's been proactive initiatives to ensure that every Georgian has access to the internet, does not have connectivity issues. The CEO and director of the GTA, Shanzia Thomas, has been very proactive. She actually started as the leader of Georgia's IT right around the time that I started as well. And she has been extremely proactive in ensuring that all of Jordans have access. So there's been significant progress since 21. We got a long road to hoe, to just be honest, because it's difficult, because the infrastructure is not there. And that's usually the biggest thing. The state can't afford to set up the infrastructure. So there has to be partnerships with the local municipalities, whether it's the county, whether it's the city, to ensure the infrastructure is there. And that's probably the biggest concern, is putting the lines there is usually an easier task. There's the issue of how does it get established in those rural areas. So there are proactive initiatives to make sure that that happens, and more to come.
Okay, great. Dr. Anderson, since you have your PhD in education, I wanted to go back to the hearings that were on with Congress and stuff regarding anti-Semitism and hate speech and all of that, and the different professors of the Ivy League schools and their comments regarding that. I'd just like to ask your input as being a PhD in education. What did you gather from that, and how did you feel about that? And several of them lost their jobs because of the words that they said. Could you just give us your perspective on that?
Okay, first of all, my doctorate is an EDD instead of a PhD, but I still earned it, and it's a good thing. But I think everyone has the right to their opinions. And I think one of the things that when you hear in the words of some of our colleagues who have lost their jobs, they're speaking the truth, and they're speaking honestly. And I don't think people should be penalized for speaking honestly. I think that honest conversation is saying that, everybody needs to be treated equal and fair. And in this day of civil unrest in other countries, we still need to make sure folks are not attacked physically or verbally or whatever. And we still need to make sure we protect the lives of those we're entrusted to, especially on college campuses. There have been lots and lots of topics where education has become the playing field for politics, for religious issues, for warfare. And it seems that because we hold the responsibility of educating our future, or preparing teachers, in my case, preparing teachers to educate our future, a lot of people want to attack the education. But I think it just shows that the problem is bigger than that. I think the vast majority of folks in the educational field are doing due diligence to do what's right. And I don't think they should be penalized or lose jobs because they're doing the right thing for children, both young and old. And I think that's the case that we often face, where you're penalized for teaching from your heart and as well as from your mind. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Winnie, you have done quite a few things there in your community, and you were successful in changing the name of the street to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And you have an organization called Wiregrass. Tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing there to help people there in the community.
Thank you, Michael. I You know, I really honor Delta Sigma Theta. We are social action. And, you know, our 22 founders, they were part of the women's suffrage movement. So I take that to heart. And what I really do, I am very active, politically active, and an activist here in my town. I love my city of Ozark, a small town in southeast Alabama. And I've done a lot of things here in the city. I was instrumental about 37 years ago in starting the Martin Luther King birthday celebration, in which we did have the street named in our Black community for Dr. Martin Luther King. And there's been several other accomplishments that I like to kind of talk about. I know I organized and founded the Juneteenth celebration that we had last year, in which we had about 400 African Americans to come out, and it was like a big family reunion.
Mhm.
We really, really enjoyed ourselves, and it was a great time and a great event. So I've been very active, and there is a nonprofit that I have called Wiregrass Rising, and we do live in what we call the Wiregrass area of Southeast Alabama, and it's just a nonprofit organization that we actually, you know, help underprivileged children. We help the elderly. We do a lot of social activities, social action functions in the city of Ozark. So I stay very busy. I was actually awarded our Dr. Yvonne Kennedy Servant Award at the state capitol at our Delta Days in Montgomery. So I do stay fairly active with any social action functions and trying to keep people abreast as to any of our political areas that we actually are involved in. And I do want to say that we are facing some times in our country. Our democracy is at stake. So, you know, I'm out here encouraging people all the time to definitely vote. And one thing that you can always know about me, I have a voter registration application with me at all times. And I'm known for that. If I go to a drive-up window, I'm asking the clerks, are you a registered voter? And if you don't have time, give me your information. Just sign the application and I can take it to the courthouse for you. So I really believe in our government process, and I really believe in Delta, and I believe in social action.
Well, thank you, Winnie. So there's no more guessing how many marbles in the jar, huh?
Absolutely not. Those days are gone. That doesn't exist anymore. But our problem that we have now is getting people to vote. You know, and I tell a lot of young people, you have to understand the struggle. You know, and every time I cross that Edmund Pettus Bridge, you know, I look at the water and wonder how many people were down in that river that was never accounted for. And, you know, I take that to heart and make sure we understand and we pass our history on, that people died that we can vote. So I always encourage people to take someone to the polls and make sure you vote.
Thank you.
It's hard to believe in this day and time that there are people who don't vote, don't consider voting important. My wife was on the city council here, and when she had to run, we went to areas of the community that nobody had ever gone to. And one lady said, she said, well, who should I vote for? I said, well, I'm telling you who to vote for right here. I got the stuff right here. She said, well, I was just going to vote for whoever had the most signs. I thought that's how you voted. Wow. It's like, no, it's a little more complicated than who's got the most signs. So there's still a long way to go in some areas in terms of just voting, man. Which seems simple, but it's not. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, what you're saying is basically there's still a lot of education to be done. And
very much so.
Yeah. And in particularly with our younger generation regarding voting and what's going on. So.
And why you should vote for somebody or not vote for somebody. You know, and you know, there is such a thing as a lie. And we grew up when a lie wasn't cool. You know, you didn't get to just tell a lie because you could. And we're in a different world now. So
absolutely.
So you're saying lying is acceptable because of a former president?
It is not acceptable.
Lying is not cool.
Right.
You just don't do that. And it goes back to trust and a whole lot of other things. So how about anybody got anything else before we go back to the next section? Barbara, you got something else? I see.
I do. I wanted to ask Cynthia Anderson a question. I know you came to Auburn at the tender age of 15. And when they were actually looking at forming the Kappa Upsilon chapter at Auburn, you were, I guess, asked about being a member of the charter line. What played into your decision at the tender age of 16, pledging a sorority? And I think you may be the youngest initiate ever at maybe, I'm sure at Kappa Upsilon and probably at the university, period. But talk about that whole experience and what that was like. Who approached you? How did that happen? And what was it like for you?
Well, just a little background also to go along with that. I think Auburn at that time was seeking to continue to diversify the campus. And diversification meant bringing in groups and organizations that promoted causes and conversations. And so Auburn sought out Delta and talked to Patsy Parker about the creation of a chapter there on campus because of Delta's mission and its visibility across the country. So that was a great thing from itself. I think the whole feeling of sisterhood, I was selected, and I'm so glad that I was chosen. But several of the other sorors that were on my line, I had not known. And I think Patsy Parker strategically selected students because of their skills and talents, and of course their GPAs and all that things that they could bring to the table. So I could remember traveling to Patsy Parker's house, and it was just that bonding experience. We met there in Opelika to do all of our study sessions and so on, came back to campus and couldn't reveal what was going on because of that secrecy of the pledge process. But we were so happy when we finally crossed over and moved into Delta Land and could be visible on campus with our red and white jerseys. I still have my original jersey that was the gift that she gave us on the day that we crossed over. So I am the first Greek member in my biological family. So before Delta and before Auburn, I really did not have a connection to sororities and fraternities. But it was such a pivotal experience for me, and the bond that we made with our sorors, that I'm proud to say that now both of my daughters are legacies, and now I have a granddaughter who just pledged at the University of Georgia because they see Delta, hopefully in me, as well as across the country when they see that sense of sisterhood. Being 15, at the time, I didn't want people to know I was young. I tried to perpetuate that I was an older person because I didn't want people to think I was the baby on campus. Right. So I didn't go around advertising I'm 15. So a lot of people didn't know that because then they start treating you like your baby. But my sorors took care of me. I was their baby, and they helped nurture and raise me and protect me while I was there on campus.
Awesome.
And you guys like my mom's mac and cheese, huh?
I love your mom's mac and cheese. Football Saturdays, home games, and every once in a while you all left a couple of pieces of chicken. So Donna, it wasn't often because football players normally took that up. So Donna sometimes would sneak chicken to go with that macaroni and cheese. So she and Kim would come, and it's ironic. Very seldom did we even go to a football game. Back in the day when, of course, you didn't even have to have a ticket or ID or whatever if you were a student to get in the game. We just sat in the dorm and waited for that mac and cheese to come.
And we might want to give our audience a little bit of background about that. Donna, who's Tom's sister,
was my sweet mate.
Was your sweet mate at Auburn? That's wonderful.
We lived in Keller Hall, dorm 9, right down the court, right there by Haley Center. So strategic location for us. And earlier I said it was just kind of interesting that back before technology platforms were in place to assign roommates and do those things, somehow or the other, I think Auburn pulled all the Black students and make sure they were all together. And so we were on a hall in dorm 9, right across the hall from our dorm mother, because we had dorm mothers. And we were 4 little Black students on that hall all by ourselves with the dorm mother. And so segregation at its best. Segregation at its best.
Segregation within integration, huh?
Yeah, but it was all good. It was all good. It was a great experience for us. You know, we bonded in our little corner of the dorm.
We had that
they had our own hall.
Yeah, right. Same experience because the dorms were made the same. I was in dorm 6, and it was 4 Black girls in the hall by ourselves, across from the dorm mother, and it was, believe me, segregation within integration.
And I'm just thinking the time it took somebody to go through thousands of applications to pull all the Black students and put them over in this little pile. Right. And we're going to put them together. That was a lot. That was time-consuming work.
Well, I think back then too. I know when I first went, you had to supply a photo.
Yeah,
and
you did.
So they knew who you were.
But somebody had to go through every one of those thousands of applications to pull out those photos of the Black folks and go ahead and place them strategically. And like I said, it worked in our benefit. I mean, it was, you know, it was good for us to have that bonding experience.
Right.
Thom, I do want to say that I do have to go to another call, but it has been a pleasure to be on with you. I've enjoyed it this morning, and it was so wonderful to be able to see my sorors. And thank you so much for the invite, and thank you for having us on. And we love Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Yes,
have a great day.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. And continue doing what you're doing.
I know we're closing down, but thank you, Winnie. And Winnie was one of our first initiates soon after we came on campus. But I just want to thank you for acknowledging Delta Sigma Theta and the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. The reunion was a celebration of our history, the celebration of the legacy that we have cultivated there on the campus of Auburn University. But beyond that, we could talk forever and ever about the work that individuals on this screen, they do on a regular basis, all fitting under that programmatic thrust. But it's all because we are collectively vowed to scholarship, service, and sisterhood. So that's a part of action. And that's and social action. And that's a part of what we do. And as you hear the conversations about what Sonya's doing, what Barbara's doing, what Winnie's doing, we're making a difference in our community. And that's what we committed to when we joined Delta Sigma Theta. And I'm so proud to be a part of the group.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's been wonderful to hear from you. And I can tell you, Barbara came back beaming, and she hadn't stopped. So we're proud of you guys for sure. And I think taking away nothing from the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, but if you came through there in the 70s, man, you earned your spurs. And
it made you strong.
You made a heck of a contribution.
Bye, Winnie.
Thank you, Winnie.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, you guys, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Appreciate you being with us.
Appreciate you. You all take care. And Michael, we'll look forward to seeing the red pajamas. In the hallway outside the ballroom.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I'm going to be the greeter.
All right, somebody's got to do it.
Security guard or something. We'll find a role for you, Michael. We'll find something for you to do.
Okay. My closing. Or as I see it, history. It's worth noting that history brings us face to face with ourselves, who we are, who we have been, even who we want to be. After my alma mater celebrated its 60th commemoration of integration, I got requests from 2 young women to do an interview with them separately, newspaper interview. They wanted to quiz me about my own history at Auburn University and quiz me on my feelings about my alma mater. My alma mater isn't perfect. I've said that many a times. Some of the questions were leading regarding the number of students of color and etc. I've said on occasion that it was unacceptable in the past to have to sit in a class as the only student of color and listen to the professor discuss the film Birth of a Nation and continually use the N-word. I had to do that 50 years ago. Unfortunately, there are still students of color who sit as their lone representative in many classrooms at my alma mater. But I also know the people who teach those in those classrooms, those administrators who guide those professors, and the leadership who is responsible for moving the university forward. I've often been critical, but also given love and praise when asked. I want to commend the Deltas for their love for the university and the university for loving them back. Sometimes progress moves at a snail's pace, but as long as it's moving, we can point to progress with pride. I also want to say thanks to everybody for all of the birthday wishes. It was wonderful. I appreciate you all, especially Dixon and the family. Love you all. And that is how I see it on this 23rd day of January in the year 2024. That's our show for today. Thank the audience. We appreciate you. Thank our G-List guests. Thank our sponsor, Best Girl Inc. Thanks again to the TWT team, Barbara, Sean, Emily, Michael, and Joyce. And that's it for this January the 23rd. Remember, a day without a smile is a day wasted. If you got an extra smile, give it to someone else today. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.